With Necroids coming into our general direction sometime during the quote-unquote spoopy month, it's probably a good time to take a look at the ship design that comes with the pack. A lot of people are always asking, hey, can we get more ships please? More fleet designs? That'd be really, really cool. Well, this week it looks like the art director for Stellaris has decided to lift the curtain on what the ships look like and how the art design came to be. So that's what we're going to be looking at this week when it comes to the Dev Diaries. Now, the process of creating a new fleet design is rather in depth when it comes at least towards the main game, the vanilla game, to a certain extent. When I'm talking to some modders, they just scribble down a couple of designs and all of a sudden they got themselves a fleet set. But obviously when you're working with a larger team and there's a certain level that you want to generate, well, then it becomes a bit more of an involved process. So initially what they will do is they will take a look at the theme of the particular pack. In this case, it's death as well as rebirth, at least from what I can grasp from the trailer, and basically take a look at what is possible there. So for this particular one, they looked at things like Art Deco, which is a architectural style, as well as Brutalist, which is something more from which is more usually associated to Soviet style buildings, but also things like tombs, pyramids, skulls, fossils, and that sort of thing. And then they slap that all together and they get themselves the initial designs that they want to go with, and these are all just mock-up drawings and that they're going to focus on and what they can do. So for instance, you've got your initial drawings. There's an entire book about this, by the way. It's the Stellaris art book, and you can get that if you have the deluxe edition, I believe. But yeah, then you get all these cool designs that pop up, and then they have to go ahead and make a decision on what is worthwhile. Are they going to go with the what looks like vaguely inspired by the Vulcans from Star Trek Enterprise, or something that has pyramids on it, because that certainly doesn't skirt very close to copyrighted / trademark material, or something a little bit sleeker, which I like myself as well. Specifically these longer, sleek designs that look pretty awesome. But in the end, they decided to focus on something else. They went ahead with this scenario, at least in terms of art concept, in the direction they wanted to go with, which is a lot more pointy, etc. Also very black, which I don't think works very well in engine, but still this seems to be the direction that they're going to go with, as well as what they've also cooked up in the trailer. And I like that, even though they should probably have a little bit more light allocated. Now, the front of the ship in this particular context is on the left, just so you are aware of that. Feels very Romulan, almost, I would say. If you've ever seen the film Star Trek, the 2010s one at least, it does really remind me of the Narada, which is one of the ships in that movie, which is handled by a bunch of Romulans. Now, once you've got your design in place, the direction you want to go with, it basically sets the base of the whole set. So you know what kind of angles you want to go with, the kind of pointy bits, the lines, and that sort of thing. And then it takes us to the style itself. And they usually start out with a cruiser design. Why a cruiser in particular? Because the cruiser is the middle size of the ships. It's not too big, it is not too small. And if they feel like, hey, this design is what we're going to go with, however, the general model that we have created is too big, then they can turn it into a battleship. Or if it's too small, they can turn it into a destroyer and use that base to iterate on the concepts, which by itself is really cool. And also they have to place the turrets and stuff like that onto the ships as well, which is very important, because one of the main reasons, at least from what I understand, is that they don't really build vertical ships, mainly because the bottom of the ships may clip through some of the planetary bodies or the stellar bodies, and also the turrets need to be able to point in a 360-degree radius, which with a vertical ship is a little bit more difficult, because you need to render more You need to render more turrets if they're not on the outside, etc. Even though I would really like to see vertical ships at some point. But in overall, they end up with sort of this kind of design concept. It's a mid-size design in this particular case. So this is a couple of concepts that they cooked up during the process. And again, it's very pointy. It kind of feels almost like it's ramming speed season. And some of these are sleeker, some of them are pointier, and yeah, some of them feel a little bit more inspired by what I would refer to as the avian set within the game. And they obviously don't really want to do too much of that because it doesn't... They want the set to be unique. So once they've built a design and they start comparing it to other designs, it's like, all right, let's take this one and iterate on towards that concept. And from that moment onwards, it's actually time to build the concepts for every single ship. And there is another design here, for instance, and that is the science ship. So we got ourselves a science ship design. They take the lines from the previous particular model and then go in for the design. Now in this particular case, they wanted to go with a bladed design on the front and basically like a sort of dagger approach. Like you could hold it as a dagger in this particular case. And then they start iterating on concepts and then pick the best particular version of that. And they ended up with the design on the bottom left, and on this angle, of course, is one that you would see in the game. And detailing and stuff like that, and just making sure that all the concept art comes out properly. And then, of course, it's time to see, hey, where is the armor going to be? Where is the intakes going to be? And this is mainly to make sure that all the lighting effects on the design are basically set up properly. Where is your armor going to be? Where is your engine going to be? Because all of these things need to be added towards the particle system within the game, the lighting system within the game. They need to be properly defined by the 3D modeler. And then, of course, there's also the construction ship, which is this particular design right here, and it goes through the same process. What are you going to go for? What sort of approach? Are you going to have something more angular? Where are you going to put the bridge? Where are you going to put the engines? What is the purpose of the ship? What should it be able to do? A construction ship is chunky because it needs to go out there and build stuff. It needs cargo, etc. And a good example of that, for instance, is the some of the designs from humanoids, for instance, that have this roundish design. But even there, the construction ship is very, very chunky. Whereas, for instance, the science ship is a lot sleeker because it needs to get to places quickly. A good example of this would be, for instance, some of the ships from Star Trek, where the science ships are a lot sleeker than the other designs, like the Nova class and that sort of thing. The Orbith does not really count, but we'll get to that subject at some later point. But yeah, then the whole process basically gets handed off towards the modelers. And this isn't an example of what the entire design process looks like from start to finish. You start out with your concepts, you move into your next stages, making sure your designs work, and then iterate upon that. And I'm a little bit sad that this picture is not bigger, because I would have liked to really see this. And I would not be surprised that in the design office or the graphical office over at Paradox, they got a giant wall of actual printouts to make the decisions of, hey, this is the direction we want to go into, and that sort of approach, which is a good way of doing it. And it's in some sense, it is really a design by committee, but it does not necessarily mean that it's not a good approach. So in the end, you end up with several designs, a concise visual a visual language that really is attached to the Necroids here. So you got yourself your stations, and they need to be upgradable as well, and that adds more complexity. Then you got your cruiser designs, which I really like. It really gives this sort of ramming feel to it, with this big pointy thing. Whether or not it has any use is a whole different question, but it's got these big inlets on the front because I guess you need to scoop up your hydrogen somehow for your Bassard collectors. And of course, the Juggernaut, which has all of these roundish angles and feels very organic, almost bony in a certain sense, which, I really, really like. In a certain way, it does really feel a lot like the avian designs. where it is, it's organic, right? So the avian designs are pretty much designed around that. The one thing that some people are always going to say, hey, modders are churning these out really, really quickly, and that's probably because when you have a single person working on a process, it does put a little bit of focus on there because they have the vision in their head and they're trying to build towards that vision. Whereas in this particular case, you've got your concept creators, you've got your storyboarders, you've got your designers, you've got your modelers, you've got your VSX artists, all working on different things all the time. And they will not really have the time to build a single thing from scratch. Mainly, maybe they don't have the design skills for that and they just iterate on what they have. It's very difficult to do these sort of things by yourself, which is why, for instance, the machine ship set is an achievement on its own. But in the end, it is production line work. So don't underestimate the amount of time that goes into these. And a lot of the time as well, these sort of things get designed way, way before these expansions get announced, and a lot of the design principles from the expansions themselves get built around the ship sets, mainly because they are usually already done or in an advanced design concept before even the set is done. And that's very important to take in the back of the head. This is not a single person building a ship set. This is a team of people that are literally working on a fabrication line. I'm kind of not, the word eludes me at the moment, but yeah, it's and they're also of course working on other titles at the same time as well, so you gotta keep all that stuff in mind. Even though we're gonna go and wrap this one up here. Necroids will come out in the spooky month, most likely then in October, which is right now actually, as of coming out of this video. So somewhere within now and the next 31 days, Necroids will land, and we will see when that actually is. But yeah, Necroids coming out soon. These are the designs, and let's just have a quick look here at what they look like in video and leave it at that. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. Design principles are always really, really nice. If you want to learn more about this sort of thing, again, there is the Stellaris art book. The physical versions, I believe, are no longer available, but the digital art books are. I think if it's part of the Galactic edition or the deluxe editions, make sure you go and check that out. They will be in your Steam apps folder under Stellaris, and they'll be in there for you to go and check out. I have the first book, and I'm currently waiting for Mr. Frederick Toll, who designs all this sort of stuff and leads the project, to build a second book, because I love this sort of thing, and it goes really, really nicely in my collection. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons for making these videos possible as always. And we're gonna go and wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.